Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo le va? Bienvenido.
Good afternoon. How are you doing? We are in teleSUR, and from now on, and in the framework of the 16th anniversary of our multi-platform, we are going to have a dialogue with President Nicolas Maduro, President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here in our main headquarters in Caracas in a very important moment for workers of our company. Well, thank you very much for existing. And thank you also for being the light of our continent, the truth of our continent. I am very happy to be here with you, to be in the teleSUR headquarters, marking its 16th anniversary. 16 years ago, Commander Hugo Chavez announced this experience that had never existed before, the experience of having a channel for the peoples who would build from the Latin American identity the necessary information, all the events, and that could serve as to counter the hegemony in terms of the mass media communication, to be an alternative to the mainstream companies in communications. And 16 years later, we can say that we have accomplished a great mission of informing the truth of the world. And where they have tried to hide the people's truth, we have been at the avant-garde for the Latin American truth. teleSUR is at the avant-garde of the new Caribbean identity. It's a new identity because it's a 21st century identity, but that it started 500 years ago with the resisting struggles of our people. So congratulations to all workers in teleSUR from this headquarters marking the 16th anniversary. One of the most important genres of communications is an interview, and you are going to answer on some of the concerns of the recent events, and not only in your country, Venezuela, but around the world, because you have a very acute perspective on international events. A few hours ago in Mexico, there was a very important event. Some years ago, the voices for integration were not as many as they are today. Now we have AMLO, who is saying that Cuba needs to be considered as a humanity example because of its resistance, and saying also that we need to think about a different OAS. So this is quite surprising. So what is your stance on this event that is ongoing in Mexico? Well, for Venezuelans, and I would say even for Bolivarians, men and women of Latin America, of the Caribbean and the world, for those of us who love the thinking and the work of Simon Bolivar, it is really exciting to see that on July the 24th, the day that marks his birth, we are paying tribute to Simon Bolivar in Mexico. And this is very exciting indeed. We are very touched, those of us who love Bolivar. So the speech of the President Obrador in the summit of the ministers of the CELAC, it's been an apotheosis because he's made a description of Bolivar's personality, of the impact of his work, and he has spoken like a pundit, and he has raised the need to strengthen the path for the Latin American Caribbean peoples, and he has raised very important issues because this statement goes back to the need of going to the CELAC principles in order to build our own path, going even beyond the OAS. CELAC was founded with a rebellious spirit, a Bolivarian spirit, Merchant spirit. It was founded in us to build from Latin America to the Caribbean our own path, a community of states, a community of Latin American and Caribbean countries. Of course, with the right wave and the counter-revolutionary movements of the last years, the SELAC was targeted and they wanted to destroy it. They also killed UNASUR, yes. They have put an end for the time being to UNASUR, but I'm sure that UNASUR will resuscitate again. And SELAC, ever since it was created, it's the organization that is going to unite our peoples to define a social, economic, political agenda in order to strengthen solidarity, mutual support, and also to boost the construction of a Latin American Caribbean identity, a cultural identity, value identity, and also in order to have a common passport so that we can move freely within all the Latin American and the Caribbean region. So the SELAC, and I'm sure of this, the SELAC is going to be transformed in the organization that Bolivar dreamt about in the Amphitronic Congress of Panama in 1826. It will become a bloc of countries, a union of free and independent republics. And the step being made in Mexico is it's beautiful, it's meaningful, and we need to thank President Obrador and also the Mexican Foreign Ministry and all the governments that were represented there. And this has been a plural endeavor, a plurality that had been abandoned when the unipolar Monroe Doctrine was imposed by the United States. And it was imposed by whom? By the Macris, by the Bolsonaros, by the Kuczynskis, that are history today. So this is an ideal moment to rekindle integration. Yes, it's a different moment from the moment of the foundation. At the foundation moment, we had the support of Chavez, Correa, Ivo, Fidel, Raul, Daniel, Cristina, Nestor, Pepe, Lula, and Dilma. That moment had a very powerful force, and Commander Chavez said that he witnessed the creation of SELAC, Petrocaribe, ALBA, the way in which the networks of the new unity of Latin America and the Caribbean was created. And now we are going to witness a second moment. In this second moment, we need to rescue the originary ideas, and also with the experience that we have gained, we need to step up. We have something that we call the government councils for different sectors, and UNASUR and SELAC established different sectors, different councils of the governments, the 33 countries, in order to address health, culture, infrastructure, communications. So we need to retake that path, and we have the experience now, and we can step up the integration path. And Bolivar also talked about the profound unity. He told us about the unity of republics, of creating a powerful bloc. And in the 21st century, Latin America has to face the great challenge of building the ideological diversity and also a powerful bloc that will present itself to the world with all its capabilities. And do you believe this is the OAS end? Well, I believe that OAS is history, but the people have not realized this. OAS is an abhorrent organization, is a demon. And if you give a demon an opportunity, well, he will take over, because that's a demon. And in Bolivia, they gave him a chance. And I always say this to Evo. Evo opened the door for them. And the demon came in through the elections. And Almagro, he pretended that he had good intentions. But I said to Evo, be careful, because I saw you with Almagro, and he's going to betray you. And he betrayed him. And have you said something similar to Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel regarding the last events last week, particularly the last Sunday. I ask you because Cuba is a very meaningful narrative in Mexico. Well, I believe that Cuba has the world's support, and now people are much more aware. This support is much more firm. And I followed the statements of the Chinese Foreign Ministry on Cuba and also the Russian statements on Cuba and 120 countries of the NAM organization and also AMLO's statement today. And if you sum up all this, Patricia, you can say that we can see a much stronger solidarity vis-a-vis the Cuban revolution and the Cuban people. There is much more awareness because Cuba has been denouncing how all the criminal measures against the economy and the Cuban people have intensified. 243 measures against the Cuban people under Trump's administration, and they have denounced this, and they have the support of more than 180 countries in the United Nations. But, well, people are just, used to listening to all this accusations, but nothing is really changed. But we see now how they are changing their perspective because Cuba is under a lot of suffering, and they have tried all kinds of torture against Cuba. They have been the subject of a social collective tortures experiment that cannot be compared to anything previous in the history, not only all over the 60 years, but for the last 4 years. And what happened on July the 11th was a crying from the Cuban people. And there were sectors, very violent sectors, that were directed from the social networks from the United States. But also the Cuban people took to the streets to defend the revolution, to defend the right to peace and tranquility. And now the Cuban people are undergoing a reflection process, a reunification process. And I can tell you that now we are going to see much more solidarity around the world with Cuba, and this is a positive thing that we need to mention. President Díaz-Canel said that you had been the first president with whom he talked on Sunday, and then we also followed the visit of the Venezuelan vice president to Cuba. So what else can Venezuela do for Cuba? Of course, under such a complex situation. Well, I called him right away on Sunday, and I told him that we've been through, much more things. We have experienced very violent riots that were financed by the empire in 2014 and 2017. The criminal groups that we have just dismantled here in Caracas that have been financed and trained by Colombian paramilitaries, and also the paramilitarism that is in the Nariño Palace. I told him the Cuban people have the strength, the moral, the awareness to overcome all kinds of circumstances. And then the Vice President went also to Cuba to ratify our support, and we are stepping up the cooperation and plans that we already had in health, and medicine, and food, and in different areas, because both countries are victims of a great aggression. And I've said to Díaz-Canel, who is a great man, he's a great guy, very intelligent, very sensitive, and revolutionary. He is an honest man, and he is a great president because he needs to take up the banners of the giants such as Fidel and Raúl. And I understand how difficult it is. I had to raise up the banners of Chavez for Venezuela and for Latin America and for the Caribbean. And in the midst of this very intense attacks in order to destroy our revolutions, Díaz-Canel has acted calmly. He is a scholar. He is a man who comes from the Cuban culture. He understands the Cuban people, and he deserves all our support. And I say to Díaz-Canel, my friend, President, you have all the Venezuelan revolution support. And I ask the Cuban people to accompany Díaz-Canel, to support him in the general recuperation of our peoples who are victims of the torture and the crimes imposed by the blockade. Yes, I want to ask you about that banner. Is it a light banner, or is it a heavy banner, or at any time you have not wanted to carry that banner? But I would rather now go to the political arena. I would like to stay in Mexico. You've said, and a spokesperson of your government, that you expect to see a dialogue with one of the oppositions in Venezuela. In Venezuela, there are several oppositions, and you have said also that when the dialogues have not been positive, that you have said that you are not doing this dialogue with the opposition, but with the United States. Now, do you think that you would be sitting now with the Democrats in Mexico and the United States? What's the difference between today's opposition, or do you think that the opposition is still at the service of the U.S. interests? I've made many calls. On April the 14th, in 2013, the Venezuelan people elected me as president of the republic. And President Chavez had just passed away 6 weeks before. And we went through the first violent protests in Venezuela that lasted 1 week because the right opposition in Venezuela, the right-wing opposition, didn't want to recognize the results, and they took to the streets to wreak havoc in the streets. They killed Cuban doctors, they set on fire health facilities, and in spite of those circumstances, I said that I was willing to go into a dialogue. And then in 2014, they started the crazy plan called La Salida, and with Obama's support. They took to the street for 3 months without it was impossible to do this without the support of the United States, without U.S. money, because they are not free opposition. They are following the U.S. orders. And what did I say back then? I said that we needed to go into a dialogue. And then in 2014, in April, in a national broadcast, we broadcast the national dialogue with the opposition. And back then, there was one bloc in the opposition. There was Capriles, Radonsky, Ramos Salud. Manuel Rosales was also there. Among those who I can remember now, Julio Borges. And they won elections in 2015, and then I said in 2016, let's take to a dialogue. Then I visited the Pope. I met Pope Francis, and he told me, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help Venezuela. And then he sent Monsignor Selly, and we established a dialogue here. And also in January 2017. And what did the opposition do when Donald Trump won the elections? They started 4 months of violent riots in order to oust the government. The second most violent and brutal protests. They abandoned the dialogue and they took to the streets, and every day they oppressed police officers, citizens. They set on fire more than 500 buses. They also oppressed workers and bus drivers, because since I was a bus driver, they thought that they were aggressing me. And what did I do in 2017? I called for the Constituent Assembly process, and then we called for elections of governors in October the 15th, and for mayors in December, and then presidential elections for the 2021. And 2020. And we were ready to sign with President Medina, President Rodrigo Zapatero, and 1 minute before signing that document for the settlement of peace, they received a call from Washington and from the Colombian president saying to Julia Borges to not sign that document. And this is what he did. He didn't consult anyone, and they abandoned the electoral process because Washington ordered them to do so. And we signed this agreement with other sectors of the opposition. We went to the elections, and after I won in 2018, in May, I called again for a dialogue. And what did they do? On August the 4th, and the Bolivar Avenue, they concocted a plot to kill me. They launched drones in order to kill me, and I was almost killed. And where this plan was prepared to assassinate me in Bogota, in Cucuta, they seized the intellectual responsibles of this crime. So only one was set free, Julio Borges, and he was the one who directed all the plot to assassinate me. And all the material and intellectual authors who were captured said this. And in CNN, and in Spanish, and in English, they showed those documentaries showing how my assassination was prepared. And what did I do? I called for another dialogue. And then in 2019, the self-proclamation of this guy who tried to invade the country from Colombia, and then in September 2019, we installed a dialogue, a group that was very productive for our country with political parties from the opposition, and this has set us a path. But Voluntad Popular is not there, and the self-proclaimed guy is not there, Juan Guaidó. And are you going to sit down with them? Well, I tell you all this story for our viewers to draw their conclusions. We have always opted for dialogue and understanding and national reconciliation in respect to the Constitution. We have set a path for the electoral option, and we elected the Electoral Council, abiding by our Constitution, presided by Jorge Rodriguez in this commission, that is a result of the dialogue. And the opposition, after the failure of the coup d'etat of the self-proclaimed guy, Mr. Guaidó, the assassin of Leopoldo López, where his plans failed, plans of assassination and violence, well, the opposition has divided, and we have had to undertake a very important effort in terms of a permanent dialogue commission presided by Jorge Rodriguez and Governor Héctor Rodriguez, also with Aristóbulo Istúriz, who was there, also the Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, Blanca Cao, and that commission has done an incredible job. And today, I can tell you that we are in a dialogue with all the opposition sectors, including Voluntad Popular and Juan Guaidó. Yes, with all the sectors of the opposition. We are dialoguing with groups, with different sectors. And I can tell you that we are ready. We are ready to go to Mexico. The Bolivarian delegations of my legitimate government and also the opposition's delegations are ready. We have already set up a very complex agenda, and we have agreed on the basis to launch this dialogue. And in August, early August, we are going to install in Mexico with the Norway's government's help and with the participation of the different governments around the world. And this answers your question. I hope to have the participation of the governments of the world, and the United States participations as well, to install a group for dialogue and peace and reconciliation with the opposition, so that we can agenda that will lead them to renounce to violence and to interventions, to violent protests and attempts of assassination, so that we can all call for the lifting of sanctions so that they can give back Venezuela's gold and so that we can take back our companies around the world. So we are ready, and I would say that we are 90% there. And in the forthcoming negotiations that are so far secret with the participation of the government of Norway, we will have a definite agreement. And something important I would like to say to you, Patricia, a good signal is the decision made by all the political parties from the opposition to participate in the forthcoming elections in November. The nominations being made from the opposition leaders, this is a very positive sign that we're getting there. And we have attracted them to the election action. All the members of the opposition? Well, I would say 99% of them. There's always going to be someone who's going to opt out for violence. There's always someone who would like to, go for interventionism or go for fantasies of interim governments because of the powers and the vested interests there. But I can tell you that we are at the best moment possible because we have attracted them to the electoral solution, and Venezuela has recovered its own dynamic of work. You also made reference in Caracas. You made reference to the Fedecamara's assembly. For our viewers in Latin America and the Caribbean who are following us today, Fedecamaras has been very active in the coup in Venezuela. Carmona Estanga was directing a government that ousted President Chavez, and this is a proof of the very close relationship that the business sector had with the opposition. So how have you done to clean this relationship? Well, it's been 20 years, Patricia. On April the 12th next year, we will mark the 20th anniversary of that coup d'etat. And I always said this. Where is the revolution now? The revolution is holding power, standing and struggling. Of course, we face difficulties 20 years after the coup d'etat. And I ask the opposition, where are you? And where are our people? And where is our revolution? And let's compare. Are you better off than what you were 20 years ago? And I always say this to Capriles, to Ramos Salud. And do you tell them this in public, or do you have secret meetings with them? No. I tell them in public meetings. And I say this to everyone, to all of those who have been the leaders of the opposition for the last 20 years and also the new leaders. I ask them, are you better off today or are you worse than what you were 20 years ago? You believe that you are probably better, but you are inflicting a lot of pain in our country. What you've done all over this 20 years, it's a lot. You have harmed the oil companies, hydroelectric companies, sanctions, the sabotage, the harm to the economy. And as the Vice President said in the speech she gave in front of Fedecamaras, Venezuela is ranked as the most sanctioned country in the world. We have lost the vast majority of our income. We, for 14 months, first time in 100 years, for 14 months, an oil-producing country like Venezuela was prevented from selling oil due to the opposition that we have. And some of the businessmen are part of that opposition. So how did you get to that meeting, and how meaningful is this for the dialogue you have told us about? Well, I believe that this is the path of the democratic reunion, so to speak, the reconciliation path, the dialogue and peace path. This is the symbol of the vice presidency and presence and the annual assembly of Fedecámaras. What we're doing here is following Chávez's legacy, who also did it. Because Chávez was the champion for dialogue and debate, because you can have a dialogue with the Fedecámaras, but then you have to take into consideration the savage capitalism concept in which they believe and they defend. And a different thing is the humanist vision, the constitutionalist vision, socialist vision, humane vision that we have. So you are not negotiating here the model. Of course not. We, as Venezuelans, have different ways of thinking, and we're sitting at the table to find common ground. And one of that common ground is to recover our productivity of our economic apparatus. Another common ground is to recuperate the prices of commodities in Venezuela. Common ground, well, the strengthening of the Bolivar, Mr. President, do you think this is a common ground with businessmen? Yes, I believe so. They have said it publicly, and they said it in their documents, in their annual assembly, in all the businessmen sector also. And we have to say that Fedecámaras today is not the same as it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they were a hegemonic organization gathering a very strong and dominating businessmen. And now Fedecámaras need to compete with a new businessman sector that has been created based on patriotic principles. They are producing and they want to stay in our country, and they want to have prosperous companies, and they want to help our economy. And the strengthening of the Bolivar is the result of the strengthening of Venezuela's wealth, as we will recover the Venezuelan industry and Venezuelan production, the generation of international wealth. The Bolivar, our currency, will stabilize, and we are going to recover our currency in a stable manner. And this is a win-win situation. Because with a strong currency, with strong trade, with controlled inflation, who is going to lose here and who is going to obtain profit? Well, all sectors are going to obtain profit. All the economic actors and our country will be winning. So, and there we are resorting to our economic thinking, our revolutionary thinking, and we have been able now to listen to each other respectfully. So the presence of the Vice President in that assembly that was all over the social media, right? Because it was a very strong trend in the social media. Both the sectors of Chavism and the opposition were concerned about that. Yes, okay, they were concerned, but I always tell them, you need to believe in what we're doing. We are following Chávez's legacy. We love that legacy, and we are entirely devoted to that legacy. So let not one think that Nicolas Maduro is going to be a traitor. No, no, not at all. I am a revolutionary, and that the one who is sitting there with the opposition and with for the cameras, and that man who was ready to talk with Trump is a revolutionary, is a Bolivarian. I am ready to sit down and talk with the devil himself if I need to. Another question concerning the economic matters, how the post-oil Venezuela And how is the oil sector in Venezuela today? Well, we have been recovering progressively. We came from zero to a very important level of reduction. And many of the things that we do, Patricia, are inspired by José Martí, the great liberator as well. So we do things in silence because we are subjected to a war. Well, but you are going to give me something, right? Well, yes. Well, let me tell you first that we are subjected to a very brutal war, and all the steps that we take, we need to be careful because if we are not careful, they can intensify their attacks, their sabotage against our oil company, the petrochemical company. So what I can tell you is the oil industry, petrochemical industry, refining industry, thanks to the Venezuelan workers and thanks to the intelligence of our professionals, thanks to the science, we are recovering our industry. All of our industry was built with the U.S. technology. In order to buy a spare part, for instance, for a machine, we need to go through enormous difficulties. It's really very difficult. Do you have international support? Well, the first support that we have is the support of the PDVSA's workers, in their sacrifice, in their hard work, to create with their own hands the spare parts that we need in order to tackle the problems that we have. And we also have important international support from Russia, Iran, and other countries also. And as I said, we have had to, to brace for these difficulties, and we have to deliver results. This is the reason why the government is here. And I would like to thank all workers and businessmen also, because we have national businessmen, very young national businessmen, who are very clever, very smart. They have a supreme intelligence, and they have helped with their capabilities in the oil industry recuperation. And also, we have been working to recuperate the food industry. Venezuela used to import all food, but 80% of our consumption is produced in Venezuela. So we need to be able to deliver in that realm as well. So before, it was difficult for Venezuelan families to have access to food at good prices. Do you think that time is over? Yes, that time is over. And this is a key for the post-oil Venezuela. First, we need to address the national demand, food, clothes, services, industry with national production. That's crucial. And the second thing is the creation of wealth, money, financial wealth, with, of course, the intention of have more exports than imports, so that we can replace the oil income. Well, someone would say to me, that's impossible in a short run. I would say, well, but if we don't start today, when are we going to start? We need to start practicing a different kind of export, a diversified export, to be an alternative to oil exports, month by month, semester by semester, to have income from non-oil production or oil exports, to receive more petros, to receive more income. And are there signs that allow you to be optimistic in this regard? I'm not optimistic. I am a realist. I believe that there are proofs already that demonstrate that this is happening. But, we need to be quiet for the time being, because the evenness, the persecution is brutal, Patricia. They are going after all of our accounts in the world. The case of CODAS, for instance, they froze money to buy vaccines. And I said this, I denounced it publicly. And 3 days later, they liberated that money for the COVAX mechanism. And 40 hours ago, they froze the transmission rights for the Tokyo Olympics. So Venezuela was going to be the only country in the world that would not have the possibility of following the Olympic Games. Do you think this is going to change with Mexico's support? Well, I believe that we can expect that all sanctions be lifted against our country. This is just not a narrative. This is just not a stance. This is our firm belief. Venezuela has right to its freedom in trade, in the economy. Venezuela has the right to grow. And why a country like the United States, as Obrador said, why there needs to be such a relationship between the United States and Latin America? Who said that we had to be a colony of the United States? There needs to be a new relationship between the power of the North and us here in Latin America and the Caribbean. And they have to leave all sanctions against Cuba. They are going to try to stifle, to torture our noble countries. What sin have we committed? The sin of wanting to be free, wanting to be independent, sovereign, to build our own model? That's our problem. That's the Cubans, the Venezuelans, the Bolivians' problems. Each country needs to build their own models according to their principles. And do you think that the conditions are there in order to do so? Well, we need to fight. We need to conquest that. No one is going to give that. It's not going to fall from the heavens. We need to create a egalitarian scenarios. And I have also denounced, Patricia, and I'm full convinced of this, that our countries need to recover economically speaking, and we need to conquest our prosperity, combating the sanction criminal blockade model from imperialism. And I have raised this to all the ministers of economy and all the presidents of public companies in Venezuela that are very powerful, and also the private sector. We need to prepare to produce everything. We need to prepare for a new export dynamics. And also we need to prepare for wealth in spite of the blockade, in spite of the sanctions. If we can put an end to that model that wants to stifle us, a criminal model against our countries, well, very well, welcome. But if we are not successful in doing so, in this year, in 20 years' time, in 20 years' time, Venezuela needs to start producing happiness for its people, and that we will have the capacity to export our own products to other peoples. Mr. President, you have always said that the economic stability goes hand in hand with the political stability, and you also raised the path that Venezuela has undertaken for elections in November, and how the vast majority of the opposition have confirmed their participation. We have seen the internal process in the party that you preside, the Socialist United Party of Venezuela. You have said that this has been a success. But I'm here like the devil's lawyer now. Is there a risk of division in the party in the forthcoming elections? How united is the PSUV party? Well, I think not. I think that we are conducting a brilliant campaign, a brilliant electoral campaign. Celia and I were watching videos on electoral campaigns. And because candidates, they are saying that this is a true campaign. Well, yes, we were watching campaigns for previous elections, and for the 23 state governments and mayoralty positions, and all Venezuelans were able to vote. And so far, the campaign is, in my view, it's 90% perfect, because there are a lot of public debates, there is a lot of respect for the community, and there might be some isolated cases or denounced, but I believe that we are going to come out stronger. And Diosdado told me this. Only with the nomination process, we have renovated 75% of the mayor's offices. 75% of those who were mayors are not going for elections this time. So we are going to renovate all the mayor's offices posts. And this is an important thing for our revolution. We have a leadership system in our streets. More than 400,000 men and women who are actively participating in this campaign. More than 40,000 members of the Bolivar units. And I believe that our system is working pretty good. And if I can give a message to all the candidates, is to launch a campaign that will take to the streets to go for to reach out to all your neighbors and the citizens. I was saying to the secretary of the party that everything that was being done was okay, but that they needed to take to the streets. They needed to reach out to those who were not convinced, and to attract the votes of all Venezuelans. Let's change a little bit the subject and to take you out of Venezuela and to know what your stance on some important events in this region, and particularly the very important relationship that Venezuela has with Colombia. You follow very closely the Colombian policy, and there are going to be elections, and we have had very intense protests in Colombia. You said that you are in favor of life, in favor of those who are protesting, but in Colombia they said that from Venezuela the attempt against President Duque was planned. And what do you have to say regarding these accusations? Well, I really regret. I'm sorry that in Nariño's palace, the mob is governing the country. And if someone has said, have watched the series El Patrón del Mal, those of you who have seen the series of Tres Caínes, those of you who have followed Colombian history over the last 30 years, well, you will understand that the drug traffic mafia mob, and the most powerful one, because they have a very important economic power. They have built a political power also in Colombia. And Escobar was one of the first who wanted to be president, and he was elected as a congressman. And then there were all the scandals that everyone is aware of, and the series tells this in detail. There are a lot of documentaries also. And from the Medellin group, the direct hairs in Colombia, and this is well known in Colombia because this has been reported and classified and unclassified documents in Colombia was Álvaro Uribe Vélez. He was there. He participated in all this. He played a key role in all the drug traffic mafia from Colombia to the United States. This is, this has been made public. So when Álvaro got to power, the mafia was getting there. And they had to accept this because the situation got out of control. And then the big names had to compete with the criminal oligarchy that had been imposed with Uribe. Then there was the contradiction of the big names when Juan Manuel Santos launched his candidacy, and he left the Colombian policy. And there you can see the difference of the big names oligarchy and the criminal drug dealing class. And then Álvaro Uribe Vélez was successful in making Iván Duque the president, and they displaced the big names. And this is the history of Colombia. I'm not saying anything that is not true. That criminal oligarchy is used to kill the Colombian people. They are used to massacres. They are used to the false positives. And the arrival of Iván Duque meant the arrival of a radical, an extremist, anti-Bolivarian. And this is how, he has acted. And there is no kind of dialogue with him. No, not at all. But not because of us, because I've said this many times. I'm Chavez's son, and I am ready to meet even with the devil if I need to, and look into the face to the devil and to shake the devil's hand and to talk with him about peace and cooperation. Iván Duque is the worst president ever. He is not a statesman. He's not a man who understands the big needs of Colombia. He's just a puppet. And even if he doesn't like being called a puppet, but he is a puppet of Álvaro Uribe Vélez. And they are capable of everything. And this is why there have been so many massacres in Colombia. Hundreds of that. More than 300 former combatants of FARC have died, and they signed the peaceful agreement. More than 300 disappeared in the missing persons in the protests. So they want to deviate the attention of the terrible tragedy that they are living in Colombia, trying to look for false positives. This is what happened in Cucuta, Mr. President. I have no doubt that this is a false positive. If they want to know where the violence is, where the reminiscences of the guerrilla are, they need to look where in Colombia. Don't look in Venezuela. Venezuela is a peace territory, and all armed groups that are crossing the border, it's going to be combated as we have done it in the 23 years of the revolution.
Let's see. Colombia has been leading a anti-Chavez propaganda against me and my government and my country. So we need to wait, because they have been imposing in the media outlets, in the most dominant media outlets, the impossibility for having diplomatic and political relations under normality. So this is basically a sort of bribery, because in natural terms is that countries like Venezuela and Colombia, two brother countries, may coexist, because 6 million of Colombian people are living here in Venezuela. When you go to any place here in the country, to any university or place, you are going to find a Colombian person. And how do they live? They are our brothers and sisters. And a significant number, accounting for 500 or 1 million people, have moved to Colombia, but they returned to Venezuela because of the pandemic. And we're talking about 400,000 people. They suffer from racism. They were rejected. And in Colombia, it has been very difficult to any president could regulate the relations with Venezuela. I do not have many expectations, Patricia, but I am confident of the noble beliefs of the Colombian people. There are two worlds, the world created by La Semana, the media garbage from Colombia, Caracol, RCN, and there is the world of the people who are working on the streets. Millions of people protesting, thousands of young people, and people who are loving Venezuela and this revolution from the bottom of their hearts. So you can be completely sure that, that in spite of that time, that new reality of the Colombian people, the structure of the governments in Colombia and the revolutionary government of Venezuela is going to change. Mr. President, in order to conclude, and we are thankful for this opportunity, so a humble person in Peru came into office. Have you talked to Pedro Castillo? One day after he came into office, I felt in his word that he was a sincere and honest person, that he wants to work for the best benefit of the Peruvian people, and this is a surprise of the Peruvian people who led that a humble person came into office. I wish success to this president. We are almost in the anniversary of the independence of Peru, and then in 2023 or 2024, we are going to commemorate the victory of Junin battle and the Ayacucho victory, which was led by the Mariscal. We are brothers and sisters. However, in Peru, there has been a campaign against our Commander Chavez and then against me, against the revolution. But there is a people, and a people that is aware of who we are, and they know that we are brothers and sisters. So I wish him success. And perhaps Peru may take the path of the heroes of the Latin American nations. And let's see what is going to happen next, because the group of Lima is suffering from the same effects as the OAS. That group was created to lead the interference against Venezuela. And most of the presidents that created that group, they are not in office. Some of them were prosecuted because they were involved in corruption. However, the Bolivarian Revolution is still working on food, working, dancing salsa, and thinking of the future of the Venezuelan people. Do you dance salsa, President? Yes. We dance joropo, drums, salsa, merengue. We dance even Colombian music. Do you remember when we were there and then Santos was dancing as well? We are usually dancing because when we are dancing, we are happy, our souls feel happiness. And this is a purpose of our existence. We humans, we create music, and this is a language coming from God. So we created poetry, rhythms to be happy. And when we dance, we're happy. This is my suggestion for you. Move forward, don't be angry. Please go and dance, share, smile, be happy so we can have a better world. This is complicated amid this COVID crisis, Mr. President, and I'm run out of questions. Well, we have been talking for almost 1 hour, but Mr. President, I would like to ask you the following about raising the flags of the heroes, and that was quoted by President Diaz-Canel. And you, Mr. President, you are raising a very difficult flag, which is the flag of Commander Chavez. How do you feel about it? Is that heavy for you? Is that a burden for you, Mr. President? No, that's not the case, because we together, we are carrying it. and we are working together. We are using our hands, and this is what I want to convey to the Cuban people. Please carry the flag of Antonio Maceo, of Fidel, of Mariana Fidelis, and Che Guevara, of Raúl as well. You must go together with Díaz-Canel. That's the only option to go through the 21st century with dignity, with freedom and independence. This is what we are doing here in Venezuela, and that's the reason why that's not a burden for me, because that is my life. Who wants to not continue living? We want to see the future and to construct and to do the best for the future. And this is what I'm thinking when I'm raising that flag. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for bringing that flag to teleSUR. Congratulations, teleSUR, for your 16th anniversary. Thank you to you, Mr. President. Thank you for giving us information regarding these topics which are important in order to know what is happening worldwide. Thank you. Remember that in teleSUR we have always more. Thank you, Mr. President.